decided to drive to the largest forest in my county in hopes of getting back in touch with nature, needing to clear my head. I asked the local forestry office the best place for a quick walk off of the main trails and was directed to this picturesque spot a little ways down the road. No reception. With the rare bit of blue sky we get in the UK, I was glad I made the spontaneous trip. And as I walked further down the path, I saw a clearing in the trees to my right. Since the plan was to get closer with nature, I ventured into the trees off the beaten path. It was great. I explored the area, listened to the birds as they swooped from branch to branch, even got a good 5 minutes of meditation in before I heard what sounded like 2 animals fighting. I assumed they were just foxes and moved on. I unexpectedly reached this sand road as I emerged from the trees, but decided to walk along it for a moment as I scanned for an entry into the forest on the other side of the road. But as I looked around, I spotted a bra dangling from a bush near the road. Now, I'm aware people go to the forest for all sorts of reasons, but this did put me slightly on edge. As I turned around, I heard an electric car making its way up the road. By the time I heard it, it was less than 300 yards away. My instincts told me to hide or just avoid being seen, but there was no time, so I simply gave a polite nod as he passed and made my way in the opposite direction. He parks up behind me, just out of view. I begin to make my way off of the road, intending to go explore further, but when I saw the car, for a moment, doing a 180 turn then parking again, something told me to turn around and go back the way I came. As I made my way back onto the road, I spot this man in a white shirt behind the bush the bra was hanging from. He was going in the direction I just changed course from. I crossed the road and made my way back into the forest I had arrived from, on the sand road. When I got slightly further in, I turned around to check if the man continued in the opposite direction, but he didn't. Instead, I see he has also crossed the road and is making his way into the part of the woods I entered. By this point, I knew I was being followed. There was no way he coincidentally went one way, then turned to head into this part of the forest that I entered. But I kept my pace brisk rather than running. My physical health can go south quick, my knees are brittle and my ankles are weak. So rushing could cost me, especially since I still had to reach my car and drive away. As I traveled further, he was always following. Was cursing my luck as I made my way to the end of that section of the forest, just before the path that was after a large patch of grass and shrubbery. But as I looked back, I couldn't see him. I stopped for longer than I should have, scanning the trees and listening intently. But I hear nothing, see nothing. I make my way back onto the path with some relief and turn one last time to check the tree line. When I see he's not there, I begin considering I was overthinking the whole situation. But just as those thoughts cross my mind, I see the man emerge from the opposite side from where he was previously. At the edge of the tree line, he just stared at me. But I wasn't going to take any more chances, so I made my way down the path and back to my car, making sure to get out of there quickly, as I knew he would have to head down the same tight country road. I reported the man to the forestry office, but there wasn't much they could do. So that was it. When I paused at the tree line when I couldn't see him, for him to have emerged from where he did, when I had made it back to the path, he had to have approached from another angle. An angle that I admittedly wasn't checking. But I'm glad I never went further into the forest. I'm glad I followed my instincts. Otherwise, the only way back would have been through him, and God knows what his intentions were. I've never spoken on this, not even to my parents or anyone around me. I am a 22-year-old male, and this happened when I was 14 through the age of 15. My friends and I would always hang out at the local mall during our free time. One day I had arrived earlier than my friends and was waiting at a seating area in the food court. There were a couple of couches around each other, and it was a common area for anyone to come sit. So I didn't really notice when a man came over and sat at a couch across from me. I was sitting on my phone not paying attention until he spoke up and said something along the lines of, "Do you come here often?" I looked up to see a man who was in his late 50s to 60s. I told him I often did with my friends, and he then introduced himself. I still remember his first name as it was the same as my dad's. I did not get an initial weird feeling. He looked normal enough, and I would have no reason to be initially weirded out by someone. So I told him my name, and we started making small talk. I am a sociable person, and have been since a young age, so I was fine talking with what I assumed was just an older man wanting to talk to someone. He started asking me things I like to do. I said I enjoyed going out to the local lake and fishing and swimming, to which he said he went out to the same lake every weekend and enjoyed fishing and swimming as well. I said I enjoyed making music, and he said he liked making music also. I told him I was an avid piano player, and he excitedly told me he had a piano at his house. There were a few other things I mentioned, and to everyone he said he enjoyed doing them also. It all felt normal right at first, but as we talked, I kept getting a weirder and weirder feeling. It was almost like with everything he said, he was trying to prove something and win me over. He said he had a boat at the lake and that we should go sometime. He even said that he lived right across the street from the mall and that I was welcome to stop by and play the piano, even going as far as telling me the complex he lived in and how to get there from the mall. He even said if I'd like I could go over that same day and play his piano. With every passing minute, it felt like he was trying harder and harder to get me to hang out with him. Talking with him honestly gave me the weirdest primitive instinct feeling ever, like I was in the face of evil or bad intentions. After 5-10 minutes of talking with him, I lied and said my friends had arrived and that I was going to go find them. He somewhat sadly said, "Okay," and wished me well. A couple of weeks go by, and my friends and I go to the mall once again. We were all walking through the mall when, out of the corner of my eye, I saw the same man in a hoodie walking past us in the opposite direction. We locked eyes for a split second, and my heart immediately dropped. I didn't look back, and I honestly forgot about it not soon after. But for the next 2 or so months, I would keep seeing him randomly at the mall. I kept brushing it off as coincidence, as there are definitely regulars at the mall who come often. So I really did not think too much of seeing him, as he never spoke to me since the first day. I would just occasionally see him and he'd be looking at me. I was naive and had a semi-weird feeling anytime I saw him, but just brushed it off. Until one day I went to the mall with my friends. We hung out for a few hours before all leaving and going home our separate ways. I got home and went into my room. No one else was home and I was by myself for a couple of hours. My mom got home around 7 to 8 p.m. and came into my room looking somewhat worried, asking if I noticed a guy outside. I said no. She then showed me her phone. We have 2 cameras, one in the front of the house and one in the back. About 20 minutes after I got home, someone approached our house. We lived off a very busy street, and our front wall blocks a majority of the view to the street. So we did not see a car park or anything, just a man walking up to our house. The camera was located near our front door looking out to the driveway, so as he got closer I realized it was the same man who I had always seen at the mall. I immediately felt sick to my stomach. He came and looked through the front door glass. He walked over to the side of our house near our driveway and left the view of the camera. I remember there was nothing on the back camera, so he had to have stayed by the side of our house for a bit. My room was not located over there, so I have no idea what he could have been doing. He then came back around and looked through the front door again before walking away. I don't know if I was just too embarrassed or scared to say anything, but I said, I did not notice and didn't know who that was. My mom found it weird that he was looking in our house, but said it could have been a homeless person or a druggie, because we live off a busy street with a bus stop right in front of our house, so we just went with that. My dad added more security cameras after this to deter people, and I never admitted to seeing him before. But after he showed up to my house, it was confirmed to me he was following me around, and I don't know what his intentions were. He never came back to the house. We moved to a different part of the city not too long after, and it was too far to go to that mall again. I have not seen him since and wish to never again.